In this session, we are going to discuss one of the most important topics from a banker's point of view, and that is interest, which can be classified into two types: simple interest and compound interest. Now, before we understand the classification, that is the difference between simple and compound interest, let us first understand what is meant by interest. Interest is nothing but the amount earned or paid by either lending money or borrowing money respectively. For example, when we lend money or when we give some loan to someone, we expect some returns on that. So that amount which is earned by giving money to others is known as interest. Similarly, when we borrow money from someone, we need to pay some extra amount over the main amount, that is the principal amount. So this extra amount that is paid to the lender is known as interest. There are three very important terms related to calculation of interest. They are principal, time and rate of interest. So let us first understand what is meant by each one of them, and then we shall proceed to understand the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Now the first term here is known as principal, which is denoted by capital P. Now principal is nothing but the amount that has been borrowed or lent. This is the main amount or the actual amount which has been borrowed or has been lent, and it is known as principal amount, or simply we can call it as principal, and it is denoted by P. The second term here is time period. There is always a pre-decided time period which is denoted as capital T. So this is the time for which the amount has been borrowed or has been lent. And the last term here is rate of interest. Rate of interest is nothing but the rate at which the amount has been borrowed. This is generally in terms of percentage per annum, and it is denoted as capital R. So principal P is nothing but the amount which has been borrowed or lent. T is the time period for which the amount has been borrowed or lent, and rate of interest is the rate at which the amount has been borrowed or lent. And as I have already mentioned, this is calculated in terms of percentage per annum. So rate of interest should always be percentage per annum. And the time period also in general should be always in terms of years. So time T should always be taken in terms of years. Now rate of interest R, which is in terms of percentage per annum, is nothing but the amount which is paid over the principal amount per 100 per year. Let's say the rate of interest is 8% per annum. That means for every 100 rupees that has been borrowed, the person has to pay 8 rupees per annum or 8 rupees per year. So for example, if the person has borrowed 1000 rupees, he will be paying 80 rupees per year on that as the interest. So rate of interest is nothing but that percentage value which defines how much has to be paid per 100 rupees for 1 year. So based on these three values, that is principal, time period and rate of interest, the simple interest and the compound interest can be calculated. After learning about the various terms related to interest, that is principal, time and rate of interest, let us now understand the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is a case in which the interest is paid at the end of every period. For example, let's say that interest is being calculated on a yearly basis. So in some cases, interest is paid at the end of every year, as and when it falls due. So such a case is considered as a simple interest case. Whereas compound interest is a case in which the interest is not paid at the end of every period, but in fact it gets added to the principal amount. So that is a major difference between simple interest and compound interest. In case of simple interest, the interest is paid at the end of every period on a regular basis. Whereas in case of compound interest, the interest is not paid at regular intervals. In fact, it gets added to the principal amount, and finally at the end, the interest along with the principal amount is paid back. So this is how we can differentiate simple interest and compound interest. But anyway, let us understand the difference with the help of a simple calculation. Let us assume that an amount of rupees 1000 has been borrowed. So the principal here is 1000 rupees for a period of 2 years. So there is a time period 2 years, and the rate of interest is 10% per annum. That means every year 10% of the principal amount has to be paid. Or we can understand that for every 100 rupees that has been borrowed, the person has to pay 10 rupees per year. So these are the three values, that is 1000 rupees which has been borrowed for a period of 2 years at 10% per annum. Let us understand the difference between SI and CI with the help of these calculations. Now, instead of using the formula directly, let us first do the calculation without using the formula. For example, here we will calculate simple interest for first year and for second year. Similarly, compound interest for first year and for second year, and try to understand the difference between these two. So let us understand that simple interest for first year is SI1, simple interest of first year, which is equal to, as we can see here, we have to pay 10% per annum. So for first year, we have to pay 10% of 1000 rupees. That is the principal. So 10% of 1000, that is equal to 100 rupees. So the simple interest for first year is 100 rupees. Let us now calculate the simple interest for second year. Now, even for second year, the simple interest will be 10% of the principal amount, that is equal to 100 rupees. Now, if you find out the total interest here, total simple interest will be equal to simple interest of first year plus that of second year, which comes out to be 100 plus 100, 200 rupees. So, we can understand that the borrower has to pay 200 rupees for borrowing 1000 rupees for a period of 2 years at 10% per annum. Why? Because interest for first year is 100 and for second year also is 100 rupees. And this simple interest can be calculated with the help of a simple formula, which is SI equals to PTR by 100. So always the simple interest can be taken as P into T into R by 100, where P is the principal amount, T is the time period, R is the rate of interest divided by 100. So 1000 into 2, 2000, 2000 into 10, 20,000 divided by 100 will be equal to 200 rupees. So friends, examination point of view, we are not going to do the calculation. We can simply use the formula and get the answer. But what happens behind the formula is as shown here. That is, for the first year we get 100 rupees, and again for the second year we get another 100 rupees. So total interest is going to be 200 rupees. So simply substitute the values in the formula PTR by 100 to get the answer. But remember, whenever we use the formula, time should always be in terms of years. The time period should always be taken in terms of years. And the rate of interest should always be in percentage per annum. So simple interest can be taken as PTR by 100. Apart from the interest, there is one more term which is known as amount. Amount is nothing but the total money which the borrower pays to the lender. For example, as in this case, 1000 rupees have been borrowed and the interest accrued is 200 rupees. So the total amount which the borrower has to pay to the lender will be equal to 1000 plus 200, that is 1200 rupees. So the total amount can be taken as principal plus simple interest. And if we take P common, we get P into 1 plus TR by 100. So as you can see in this case, interest or simple interest is PTR by 100 and the total amount is P plus SI. Remember, total amount is denoted by A, and that total amount here is going to be 200 plus 1000, that is equal to 1200 rupees. So the amount is 1200, whereas the simple interest is equal to 200. So this is how we can find out the simple interest. The formula is PTR by 100 and the total amount can be taken as P plus SI. Let us now do the calculation for compound interest. And for comparison point of view, we will take the same values, that is 1000 rupees for a period of 2 years at 10% per annum to find out the compound interest. Now, let us again calculate compound interest for 2 years separately. So the compound interest for first year will be equal to 10% of 1000 rupees, as the rate of interest is 10% per annum and the principal amount is 1000. So 10% of 1000 will be equal to 100 rupees. The compound interest for second year will be equal to 10% of, it won't be 1000 rupees for the second year, it will be 10% of 1000 rupees plus 100 rupees. As I have already mentioned, in case of compound interest, the interest is not paid on a regular basis. In fact, it gets added to the principal amount. So here, the principal for the second year will be principal of first year 1000 plus the interest of first year 100. That is nothing but total 1100 rupees. So this can be taken as 10% of 1100 rupees, which is equal to 110 rupees. And the total compound interest can be taken as compound interest for first year plus that for second year. So that is 100 plus 110, 210 rupees. So as you can see here, the difference in case of SI and CI is, in case of SI, that is simple interest, the principal remains constant. For the first year it is 1000, for the second year also it remains 1000 rupees. But in case of compound interest, the principal changes. As you can see here, for the first year the principal was 1000, but for the second year the principal will be 1100 rupees. Why 1100 rupees? The principal for second year is principal of first year, that is 1000, plus interest of first year, that is 100. So the total principal will be 1100 and the interest comes out to be 10% of 1100, which is 110 rupees. Let us now look at the formula to be used to find out the compound interest. Compound interest CI can be calculated as P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus P. Or if we take P common, it can be taken as 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus 1. So this is how we can calculate the compound interest. So if we substitute the values of P, T and R, that is 1000 rupees, 2 years and 10% per annum in these formulae, we get the answer as 210 rupees. So examination point of view, we'll use the formula, but this is what happens behind the formula. The individual calculation is first year 100 rupees and second year 110 rupees. Again, in case of compound interest as well, there is something called as total amount, which is denoted by A. The total amount is nothing but principal plus interest. So as you can see here, the principal is 1000 and the interest is 210 rupees. So the total amount will be 1000 plus 210, that is 1210 rupees. So the amount here A can be calculated as P plus CI, which is nothing but P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T. As you can see from the formula of CI, it is P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus P. So when we have to find out the total amount A, we need to add principal to the interest. So when we add principal, minus P and the principal gets cancelled. So the left out value is P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T. So that can directly be taken as the amount for compound interest. So the total amount in case of CI will be P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T. So here the interest is going to be 210 as discussed and the total amount will be 1000 rupees plus 210, that is equal to 1210 rupees. So when we use the values in the second formula here, our answer will be 1210 rupees. So this is the difference between simple interest and compound interest calculation. Let us once again revise what are the major points to be understood here. The first point is, in case of simple interest, the principal remains constant. Even for the third year, simple interest will be 10% of 1000, that is equal to 100 rupees. And even for fourth year, again it continues to be 1000 rupees only. So the principal remains constant in case of simple interest. Why? Because in case of simple interest, the interest is paid as and when it is generated. So at the end of every year, the interest of 100 rupees is paid back. But in case of compound interest, as we have already discussed, interest is not paid on a regular basis. Whereas here it actually gets added to the principal amount. So that is the reason in case of CI, the principal changes. For first year it is 1000, for second year it is 1100 and so on. So the principal for second year is nothing but principal of first year plus interest of first year. Similarly, if you want to find out the principal of third year, the principal of third year in case of CI will be principal of second year plus interest of second year. So principal of second year is 1100 and interest of second year is 110. So we can say that the principal for third year is principal of second year plus interest that is earned in second year, which is 1100 plus 110, that is equal to 1210 rupees. And again, the compound interest for third year will be 10% of this value. So 10% of 1210 will be equal to 121. So this is how the principal keeps changing. First year 1000, second year 1100, third year 1210 and so on. And hence the interest also increases. For first year it is 100, second year 110, third year 121 and so on. So what we need to understand here is, in case of CI, the principal changes on a regular basis. The principal for present year is nothing but principal of previous year plus interest earned in the previous year. For example, the principal for 9th year will be nothing but the principal amount of 8th year plus the interest that has been earned in 8th year. So one major difference that we can understand in case of SI and CI is, in case of simple interest, the interest is earned only on the principal amount. As you can see here, it is only on the principal amount but not on anything else. Whereas in case of compound interest, the interest is earned not only on the principal but also on the interest of previous years. As you can see here, principal we get interest, at the same time we get interest on the previous year's interest, that is 100 rupees. Here again we get interest not only on principal but on the previous year's interest. So compound interest always is an interest on principal and earlier interest, whereas simple interest is an interest only on the principal amount. One more point that we can observe in case of SI and CI is, the simple interest for first year is 100 rupees and the compound interest for first year is also 100 rupees. That means there is no difference between SI and CI for a period of 1 year. 100 rupees and again 100 rupees here. Why? Because for the first year, principal remains same in both the cases. The principal will change only from second year onwards. That is the reason we can observe a difference in case of interest of second year. We have 100 rupees for SI of second year and 110 rupees for CI of second year. So the difference will come into picture only from second year onwards. Why? Because the principal changes only from second year onwards, if it is a yearly calculation. And before we take up any other example, let us also understand why simple interest is called simple and why compound interest is called compound. The reason why simple interest is called simple is because here we simply get the interest only on the principal amount. There is no confusion and no complicated calculation. But compound interest is called compound because it is a compounding procedure. Here, as you can see, every year the interest is calculated and that is compounded to the principal. Again, in the next year, the interest is calculated and that gets compounded to the principal. So it is like a compounding procedure where the interest gets mixed with the principal always. So that is the reason these two things are named so. Let us now take up the first model from this topic where we are going to discuss the basic questions from simple interest. Before we do that, let us understand the formula once again. Simple interest SI can always be calculated as PTR by 100, where P is the principal, T is the time period and R is the rate of interest. Remember, T should always be in terms of number of years and R should always be in terms of percentage per annum. And the total amount in case of simple interest can be taken as principal plus interest or principal plus simple interest. So principal is P and the simple interest is PTR by 100. And if we take P common, we get P of 1 plus TR by 100. Let us now take an example on the calculation of simple interest. The question is simple interest on an amount after 24 months at the rate of 2% per quarter is rupees 960. What is the amount? So as you can see here, the time period is 24 months and the rate is 2% per quarter and the simple interest earned is rupees 960. So the question says simple interest on an amount after 24 months at the rate of 2% per quarter is 960. What is the amount? Now, as you can see here, the amount which has been mentioned here is in reference to the amount given at this statement, that is simple interest on an amount, and this amount is nothing but the principal. So here we are supposed to find out the principal amount. Simple interest on some principal after 24 months at the rate of 2% per quarter is 960. What is the amount? The point to be understood here is amount is a general term. It can either be total amount or the principal amount. So based on the question, we first need to decide is it the principal amount or the total amount, and then accordingly do the calculation. So as it is an interest on some amount, this amount has to be the principal. So the principal has to be calculated. We know the formula for simple interest is equal to PTR by 100. So let us substitute the values here and find out the required answer. Now the simple interest is 960, that should be equal to the principal into time period given here is 24 months. But as I've already mentioned, time which we substitute should always be in terms of years. And we know that 24 months is equal to 2 years. Right? So time which should be taken here in the formula should be 2 into the rate of interest is 2% per quarter. R is given as 2% per quarter. A quarter is nothing but 3 months. So 2% per quarter. So for every 3 months, the rate of interest is 2%. But since we have 4 quarters in a year and the rate of interest has to be in percentage per year, we should multiply it with 4 so that we get the required rate of interest per year. So this can be taken as 2% into 4 per year, since a year has got 4 quarters. So this will be equal to 8% per year or 8% per annum. So now the correct R which has to be substituted in the formula should be 8. So P into 2 into 8 divided by 100. So from this P will be equal to 960 into 100 divided by 2 into 8 is 60. And this gets cancelled here 60 times. So that is equal to 6000. So we can say that the principal amount here should be 6,000 rupees. So simply use the formula SI equals to PTR by 100 to find out either P or T or R or the simple interest. So as you can see, out of 4 variables, any 3 would be given to us. We are supposed to find out the 4th one. So just substitute the values at the proper places and get the required answer. So friends, this is the normal way of solving the problem where we use the formula SI equals to PTR by 100 to find out the required answer. But apart from this method, if we try to go with the concept of percentages, solving questions from SI and CI will become much faster. So let us understand how to solve this question with the help of percentages. We know that the given time period is equal to 2 years and the rate is 8% per annum. That means every year we get 8% on the principal amount. And since this is a simple interest calculation, we very well understand that if first year we get 8%, in the second year also we get 8%. So the total interest that will be obtained here will be 8 plus 8, 16%. And as given in the question, the interest is equal to 960 rupees. So we can understand that 16% of the value is equivalent to 960. This is nothing but the simple interest. And we are supposed to find out the principal P. Now, since all the calculations here are done always on the principal amount, remember, principal should always be taken as 100%. So, as in case of profit and loss, we say that cost price is always 100%. Here in case of simple interest and compound interest, always principal should be taken as 100%. So, 16% is given as 960 and we are supposed to find out 100% is equivalent to what? So, simply by cross multiplication, we get the required answer. So, the principal P can be taken as 100 into 960 divided by 16, which is same as what we have done here, 960 into 100 by 16, and here we have 100 into 960 by 16. And by simplifying this, we get the answer as 6,000 rupees. So either we can use the formula to find out the answer, or otherwise simply understand what will be the total interest that will be earned in a period of 2 years at the given rate, and then equate that to 960 and cross multiply to find out the principal amount. So the important point to be understood here is principal should always be taken as 100% in case of simple interest and compound interest calculations. Similarly, let's say that the rate of interest is 10% per annum. The rate is 10% per annum and the time period is equal to 3 years. So the total simple interest will be equal to 10 plus 10 plus 10, that is 30%. Why? Because every year we get 10%. So for 3 years we will get 30%. So simply here SI can be taken as 30% and principal is 100% as usual. Similarly, let's say that the rate of interest is 12% per annum and the time period is 2.5 years. So what will be the simple interest? Now in this case, the rate is 12% per annum. So for 2 years we get 12 plus 12, 24%. But since the time period is 2.5 years, so for the remaining half year we get 6%. Why? Because if it is 12% for 1 year, for half year it has to be 6%. So 12% in the first year, 12% in the second year and 6% in half of the year. So total will be 12 plus 12 plus 6, that is equal to 30% again. So like this we can always find out what is the total simple interest and then proceed for the calculation with the help of cross multiplication. So always try to use the concept of percentages so that the calculation becomes easy. Let us now take one more example based on the concept that we have just learned. The question here is an amount becomes rupees 8,800 in 4 years at 15% per annum. What is the amount? So as discussed earlier, we first need to decide what amount is he talking about. Is it the principal amount or the total amount? Now that can be understood from the given statement. The question says an amount becomes rupees 8,800 in 4 years at 15% per annum. That means time period is 4 years, that is very clear, and the rate of interest is 15% per annum. Even that is fine. But the point again remains that what amount should be calculated? Is it the principal amount or the total amount? Now the point to be understood here is an amount becomes rupees 8,800. Remember that whenever the word becomes is used, the value which is followed by becomes is always the total amount. This can be understood with the help of a simple example. Let's say rupees 10,000 have been invested in a bank which gives some interest. Now this 10,000 becomes 12,000 after some time. That means very clearly when we say 10,000 becomes 12,000, it becomes what? total amount. Why? Because 12,000 has got initial amount 10,000 or the principal amount 10,000 plus extra 2,000 rupees. So whenever we use the term becomes, we always refer to that value which is the total amount. So here this 8,800 is nothing but the total amount. And he says an amount becomes 8,800. So this amount has to be calculated. And we understand that principal becomes total amount. So very clearly the point here is principal is equal to what? We need to again find out the principal. So some principal becomes 8,800 in 4 years at 15% per annum. What is the principal amount is the question. Now the second point that has to be clearly understood here is, in the question nowhere it has been specified whether this is a simple interest calculation or a compound interest calculation. Simply the time period, rate of interest and the total amount has been given and the principal has to be calculated. But nowhere we find is it a simple interest or a compound interest calculation. Remember friends, when there is nothing specified in the question, we always need to go for simple interest. So take it for granted that if nothing has been given in the question relating to whether it is simple interest or compound interest, always go for simple interest calculation. So here again we need to go for SI, that is equal to PTR by 100. Now let us substitute the values and find out what can be the answer here. Now 8,800 is nothing but the total amount, and we know that total amount in case of SI is equal to P plus PTR by 100. And if we take P common here, we get 1 plus TR by 100. So let us substitute the values and then find out the required answer. So total amount is 8,800 is equal to the principal P has to be calculated into 1 plus T into R. Time period is 4 years. Already it is in years, so we need not convert. And the rate of interest is also in percentage per annum. So even that is in the proper format. So 15, R is equal to 15 divided by 100. So from this we can say this is P into 1 plus 4 into 15, 60 by 100, which is nothing but P into 160 by 100 or 16 by 10. 16 by 10 can be taken as 8 by 5. So finally, the principal P should be equal to, see this is 8,800 equals to P into 8 by 5. So P will be equal to 8,800 into 5 by 8. So this goes 1100 times, 1100 into 5 is 5,500. So we can say that the principal should be equal to 5,500. So as you can see, this is a very simple calculation. Simply apply the proper formula, substitute the values at the proper places and do the calculation to get the required answer. So this is again the general way of solving the problem where we are going by the formula. Let us now look at the smart way of solving this question, where simple one cross multiplication will give us the required answer. And here we need to use the concept of percentages. Now, as you can see here, the time period is 4 years and the rate of interest is 15% per annum. That means every year we get 15%. So very clearly in 4 years, the total interest accrued will be 15% into 4, that is 60%. So we can understand that the simple interest will be equal to 4 into 15%, that is nothing but 60%. And we also understand that 8,800 is the total amount. Now total amount is nothing but principal plus SI or principal plus simple interest. So amount which is principal plus simple interest can be taken as 100% plus 60%. We very well know that principal should be always 100% and interest from the given question is 60%. So the total amount will be 100 plus 60, 160%, which is equivalent to 8,800 rupees. And we are supposed to find out what is the principal. We know that principal is 100%. That should be equal to what? So when we cross multiply, we get the required answer. So principal can be taken as 100 into 8,800 divided by 160. Upon simplification, we get the answer as 5,500 rupees. So as you can see here, the only step which is actually required to be written on paper is this one. That is 160% is equivalent to 8,800, 100% is equal to what? All these calculations can be done without paper. Why? Because if it is 15% per annum, so for 4 years it will be 60%. And 100 plus 60 is 160. So as you can see, we are not writing too many steps on paper. And that helps us save some time. Simply cross multiply to find out the required answer. So again the same point remains that principal should always be 100%. Find out the total interest in terms of percentage from the given rate of interest and the time period. And do the cross multiplication to get the required answer. Let us now take the second model from this topic where we are going to do calculations related to compound interest. Let us first have a look at the formula required. Compound interest, as we have discussed, can be taken as P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus P. Or if we take P common, it can be taken as P of 1 plus R by 100 whole power T minus 1. So where P is the principal, R is the rate of interest and T is the time period. So simply by substituting the values, we get the required compound interest. Remember again, our rate of interest should always be in percentage per annum, and the T, time period, should always be in terms of number of years. And the total amount in case of compound interest can be taken as principal plus CI, which can be obtained as P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T. So depending on the question, we first need to decide, is it the compound interest or the amount that has to be calculated, and then substitute the values at the proper places to get the required answer. Let's now take a simple example based on the calculation of compound interest. What will be the compound interest on rupees 5,000 for 2 years at the rate of 12% per annum? So as you can see here, this is a direct question where the principal is rupees 5,000, time period is 2 years, and the rate is 12% per annum. And we are supposed to find out what will be the compound interest. We know that compound interest is equal to P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus 1 if we take T common. So let us simply substitute the values and find out what will be the required answer. So this will be equal to, the principal is 5,000 into 1 plus rate of interest is 12 divided by 100 whole to the power of 2. Why? Because the time period given is 2 years minus 1. So if we try to simplify this, this will be 5,000 into 1 plus 12 by 100 will be 112 by 100. So 112 by 100 whole squared minus 1. 112 by 100 is nothing but 56 by 50, or we can take it as 28 by 25. So this will be 5,000 into 28 by 25 whole squared. 28 by 25 whole squared minus 1. So this is again 5,000 into 28 squared is 784 by 625 minus 1. So if we take 625 as LCM here, we get 5,000 into 784 minus 625 divided by 625. And this can be further simplified as 5,000 into 784 minus 625 would be 159. 159 by 625. Now simplifying it further, 25 into 25 is 625. 25 into 200 would be 5,000. 25 into 1 is 25 and 25 into 8 is 200. So the answer should be 8 into 159. Final answer will be 8 into 159, which is equals to 1,272 rupees. So the total compound interest on an amount of rupees 5,000 for a period of 2 years at the rate of 12% per annum is 1,272 rupees. But as you can see here, going by the formula is really a very tedious task. Lot of calculation is involved, and we'll have at least 4 to 5 steps till we get the final answer. So let us now see what is the smart way of solving this problem. Rather than using the formula, we can again go by the concept of percentages to get the required answer. We know that in case of compound interest, we get interest not only on the principal amount but also on the previous year's interest. So keeping this point in mind, let us understand what will be the total percentage of interest that we are going to get in this case. So the total interest, compound interest, can be taken as, in the first year we get interest only on principal amount. So we can simply say that the first year's interest will be 12%, as the rate of interest is 12% and principal always has to be 100%. So 12% of 100% is 12%. So this is the interest of first year. Let us now understand what will be the interest of second year. In the second year, we get interest on principal and interest on first year's interest. Interest on principal again will be 12%. Why? Because principal is always 100% and the rate of interest is 12%. So in the second year, the interest that we get on principal will be 12%, plus there will be some extra amount. This extra amount is nothing but interest on interest. And here that interest will be earned on first year's interest, which is 12% as we have already calculated. So the extra amount that we get will be 12% of 12%, that is first year's interest. So as you can see here, this is going to be the total interest for second year. So in the first year we get only 12%, that is on principal, and second year we get 12%, which is again on principal, plus 12% of 12%. Understand, this 12% here is nothing but the interest of first year. So by adding this, we can get the total compound interest for 2 years. Now, going by the percentage of percentage concept, we know that x% of y% is xy by 100%. So here 12 into 12 by 100 is nothing but 1.44. So this will be equal to 1.44%. So the total compound interest here will be equal to 12 plus 12, 24. 24 plus 1.44 is 25.44%. So the total interest that is earned in 2 years will be equal to 25.44%. Let us once again understand this point. If it is simple interest, we will get 12% in first year and 12% in second year. So the total simple interest will be only 12% plus 12%, that is 24%. But as this is a compound interest calculation, this 12 plus 12, 24 will be there. But at the same time, we also have an additional amount. This additional amount is nothing but interest on first year's interest. So that is the reason we are taking 12%, which is the rate of interest on first year's interest. This 12% here is first year's interest. So 12% of 12%, that is 1.44%, is the additional interest that we get in case of CI. Whereas in case of SI, we will get only 12 plus 12. So the total here is 12 plus 12 plus 1.44, which is 25.44%. So here we need to find out 25.44% is equivalent to what? And we know that 100%, that is nothing but the principal. Principal should always be taken as 100% and it is given as 5,000 rupees. So we can say that the principal 100% is equivalent to 5,000. So simply by cross multiplication we can find out the required answer. So the CI here will be equal to 25.44 into 5,000 divided by 100. So zeros get cancelled and then 25.44 into 50 when multiplied will result in 1272. So as you can see here, comparatively, this way of doing the calculation is much faster and easier when compared to the general procedure which uses the formula. The only step which has to be written on paper is this one, that the compound interest will be 25.44%, which has to be calculated, and 100% is 5,000. Let us now understand how can this calculation be done in a much simpler way. If you remember, in case of percentages, we have discussed a concept called net or effective percentage. Net or effective percentage can always be taken as A plus B plus AB by 100%. There we had discussed that whenever two percentages are given to us and we need to find out the effective of these two percentages, we always go for A plus B plus AB by 100%. So in case of compound interest as well, the net or effective percentage concept is applicable. If you try to compare, A is nothing but 12%, that is the interest in first year. B is again 12%, that is interest on principal for second year. And AB by 100 is nothing but 12% of 12%, which comes out to be 1.44%. So compound interest can always be taken as A plus B plus AB by 100. The only point is A and B are equal in case of CI. First year we have 12%, second year also the rate of interest remains same, that is 12%. So by substituting the values in the formula of net or effective percentage, we can find out what is going to be the CI for 2 years. If we substitute here, we get 12 plus 12 plus 12 into 12 by 100. So 12 into 12 is 144. 144 by 100 is 1.44. So 12 plus 12, 24 plus 1.44 is 25.44%. So blindly we can remember that compound interest for 2 years will be A plus B plus AB by 100%, where A and B are equal to the rate of interest. So friends, try to use the concept of percentages for solving the questions related to SI and CI in a smart way. Before we take up some more examples, let us quickly revise how to calculate compound interest with the help of percentages. As we have discussed in the previous example, compound interest can always be taken as A plus B plus AB by 100%, where A and B is nothing but the rate of interest. For example, let's say that the rate of interest is 8% per annum and the time period is 2 years. So instead of going by the formula, we can simply say that the total compound interest is going to be 8 plus 8 plus 8 into 8 by 100, where A is nothing but 8, B also is 8, and A into B by 100. So this comes out to be 16 plus 0.64. As 8 into 8 is 64, divided by 100 is 0.64. So 16.64%. So based on the principle, if we calculate 16.64 percentage of the principal value, we get the required compound interest. Similarly, let's say that the rate of interest is 14% per annum, and we are supposed to find out the compound interest for 2 years. So again, with the help of the formula A plus B plus AB by 100%, that is nothing but the net or effective percentage, we can find out what will be the CI for 2 years. So CI for 2 years in this case would be 14 plus 14, that is 28, plus 14 into 14 by 100. And if we are good in calculation, even this step is not required. We can orally find out what will be the total percentage. 14 plus 14 is 28, and 14 into 14 is 196, as it is 14 squared. So 196 by 100 is 1.96. So 28 plus 1.96 would be 29.96%. And if the options are given in such a way that approximate calculation will help us to mark the correct answer, we can approximately take it as 30% and get the answer in a much faster way. Now the important point to be understood here is how to do compound interest calculation for 3 years with the help of percentages. For example, let's say that the rate of interest is 10% per annum and the time period is 3 years. So how do we find out what will be the CI for 3 years? And as you can see here, the formula is A plus B plus AB by 100, which involves only 2 percentages. And here we have got 3 years, so each year is like 10%. So 10, 10 and 10. 3 values are available, 10%, 10% and 10%. So how to find out effective of 3 percentages? If we have only 2 percentages, we can take it as 10 plus 10 plus 10 into 10 by 100. But what to do when there are 3 percentages? The simple point here is find out the effective percentage for these two. That is nothing but 10 plus 10 plus 10 into 10 by 100. It comes out to be 20 plus 1, 21%. Now with this effective percentage and the left out percentage, again we have to find out what will be A plus B plus AB by 100. So the overall effective percentage for 3 years will be equal to 21 plus 10 plus 21 into 10 by 100. So 21 plus 10 is 31, and this is 210 by 100, 2.1. 31 plus 2.1 is 33.1%. So the whole idea here is when there are 3 percentages, we need to do the calculation in such a way that all the 3 percentages are used in the net or effective percentage formula. So we use the first 2 in the first case, then the answer with the third one to find out the overall answer. Likewise, if it is 12% per annum for 3 years, we can take 12 and 12 in one step and get the required percentage. With that effective percentage and the left out one, that is one more 12%, we need to apply A plus B plus AB by 100 to get the answer for 3 years. So this is how we can use this formula A plus B plus AB by 100 to find out the compound interest in terms of percentage for 2 or 3 years. Let us now take another example based on the concept of compound interest that we have just learned. The question here is, Manish deposited some money in a bank at the rate of 6% per annum for 2 years at compound interest. How much money was deposited if he gets rupees 11,236 on maturity? So very clearly, upon maturity, whatever amount we get is nothing but the total amount, right? So very clearly we can understand that 11,236 here is the total amount which Manish gets after 2 years. The rate of interest given is 6% per annum and the time period is 2 years. So we need to find out how much money was deposited. That is nothing but the principal amount, as Manish has deposited some money which becomes 11,236 after 2 years. So the principal has to be calculated if the total amount is 11,236. So we can say that the total amount here based on compound interest is 11,236. Rate of interest is 6% per annum and the time period is equal to 2 years. Now as we have discussed, for compound interest we can use the net or effective percentage formula to find out the total interest that we get in terms of percentage. So let us understand what will be the interest at the rate of 6% per annum for 2 years. So we can say that the CI here will be A plus B plus AB by 100, where A and B are equal to 6. So 6 plus 6 plus 6 into 6 by 100. This comes out to be 12.36%. So the total compound interest for 2 years will be 12.36%. Now, as this is the total amount, it is nothing but principal plus the compound interest. We know that principal should always be taken as 100%, and the CI what we have calculated is 12.36%. So we can say that 100 plus 12.36%, that is total 112.36% is equal to 11,236. That is the total amount, and we have to find out how much money was deposited. That is nothing but the principal. Principal always is equivalent to 100%. So this is equal to what has to be calculated. So by cross multiplication, we can find that the principal will be 10,000 rupees. So friends, as you can see here, the concept of net or effective percentage is very useful in solving questions related to compound interest. If it is for 2 years, simply use A plus B plus AB by 100. And if it is for 3 years or more, we have to use A plus B plus AB by 100 multiple times to find out the effective percentage. And then cross multiplication will help us in finding out the required answer. So always try to use this concept of percentages for both simple and compound interest and get the answers in a smart way. Let us now take the third model from simple interest and compound interest, where we are going to discuss questions related to varying rates of interest. In these cases, the rate of interest is not fixed, but it varies from period to period. Let us take some examples to understand this. The first example here is, if rupees 20,000 is given as loan for a period of 3 years with interest rates as 5%, 7% and 9% for the first year, second year and third year respectively, what is the total amount that needs to be paid at the end? So as we can see here, 20,000 was given as loan. So very clearly this 20,000 is the principal amount. It was given for a period of 3 years. So the time period here is 3 years. And the interest rates are 5%, 7% and 9% for the first, second and third years respectively. That means the interest rate is not constant. First year we need to pay 5%, second year 7% and for the third year 9%. And the question is, what is the total amount? So we need to find out the total amount A that needs to be paid at the end. We know that total amount is nothing but the principal amount plus the interest amount. So principal is 20,000. We need to find out the interest here. Now going by the formula, the simple interest here can be calculated as P T1 R1 by 100 plus P T2 R2 by 100 plus P T3 R3 by 100. The point here is, for different time periods, the rates of interest are changing. So for the first time period, interest R1, for the second time period, interest R2, and the third time period, the interest is R3. So by substituting the proper values, we get the required simple interest. And since the principal is constant for the whole period, we are taking it as P. So by taking P common, we can get the answer as T1 R1 by 100 plus T2 R2 by 100 plus T3 R3 by 100. Now let us substitute the values to find out the simple interest. The principal as given in the question is 20,000. So 20,000 into T1 is 1 year. For the first year, the rate of interest is 5. So we can take it as 1 into 5 by 100. Then for the second year, only for second year, that means the time period is 1 year, that is the second period here. So for second year, the interest is 7%. So T2 will be 1, R2 would be 7 by 100 plus. Similarly for the third year, the interest is 9%. So 1 into 9 by 100. So this comes out to be 5 by 100 plus 7 by 100 plus 9 by 100. That is nothing but 5 plus 7, 12 plus 9, 21 by 100. So overall answer here would be 20,000 into 5 plus 7, 12 plus 9, 21 divided by 100. So by simplifying this, we get 200 into 21, which is 4,200 rupees. So this is the total interest that needs to be paid at the end. But the question says, what is the total amount? Total amount, as we know, is nothing but principal plus interest. So the principal here is 20,000 plus the interest is 4,200. So we can say that the total amount A would be principal plus simple interest. That is 20,000 plus 4,200, which comes out to be 24,200 rupees. So the overall answer for this question would be total amount is 24,200 that needs to be paid at the end. Now, one very important point to be observed here is, in the question, nowhere it has been specified whether this is a simple interest case or a compound interest case. But still, we have taken it to be a simple interest case. Because, as I've already mentioned, when nothing has been specified in the question, we always have to take it as simple interest case. So, going by the thumb rule, that is, if nothing has been mentioned in the question, we can always take it as simple interest case. So, we find out the total interest and then total amount is principal plus interest. Now, this is the normal way of solving the question where we are using the formula for varying rates of interest. The formula here is nothing but simple interest equals to P1 T1 R1 by 100 plus P2 T2 R2 by 100 plus P3 T3 R3 by 100. But since the principal is common, we have taken it as P all across. Otherwise, going by the concept of percentages, the same question here can be solved in just one step as we have discussed in model number 1 and model number 2. The simple point to be understood here is, as this is a simple interest case, in the first year we get 5% as interest. In the second year we get 7%, and in the third year we get 9% on the same principal amount. That means very clearly the total interest that we get would be 5 plus 7, 12 plus 9, 21%. And the question says, what is the total amount? We know that total amount is principal plus simple interest. So principal is 100%. Plus the interest that we get in 3 years would be 21%. That is equal to 121%. Total amount 121%. So this should be equal to what? As the question says, what is the total amount? And we know that the principal is 20,000. So very clearly the principal always should be taken as 100%. That is equal to 20,000. So the point here is 100% is equivalent to 20,000. 121% is equivalent to what? By cross multiplication, we get the total amount as 24,200. So as you can see here, instead of writing all the steps and going by the formula, we can simply understand what percentage equivalent has to be calculated from the given percentage equivalent. And cross multiplication will give the correct answer. So always try to use percentages for solving the questions from simple and compound interest, so that we get the answer in just 1 or 2 steps. Let us now take an example on varying rates of interest for the case of compound interest. The question here is, an amount of rupees 10,000 is taken as loan by Vivek at compound interest charging 5 PCPA, that is 5% per annum for first year, 10% per annum for second year and 20% per annum for the third year. What is the total interest to be paid by Vivek after 3 years? So as you can see here, this is a case of varying rates of interest where the interest for the first year is 5%, for the second year is 10% and for the third year is 20%. And the principal amount is 10,000, as an amount of 10,000 is taken as loan. So this is the loan amount, that is the main amount or the principal amount. So the principal is 10,000. On this principal, for the given rates of interest, we need to find out what is the total interest to be paid by Vivek after 3 years. And very clearly, this is a case of compound interest as specified in the question. So we need to find out what will be the total CI at the end of 3 years that needs to be paid by Vivek. Now going by the formula for varying rates of interest, the amount, the total amount can be calculated as P into 1 plus R1 by 100 whole power T1 into 1 plus R2 by 100 whole power T2 into 1 plus R3 by 100 whole power T3 and so on. So this is how we can find out the total amount to be calculated for varying rates of interest. Since the principal is common, it is taken out. We have 1 plus R1 by 100 power T1, 1 plus R2 by 100 power T2, 1 plus R3 by 100 power T3, where R1, R2 and R3 are the different rates of interest for different periods T1, T2 and T3. So with the help of this formula, we can find out the total amount at the end of the given period, and from this amount, when the principal is subtracted, we can find out the compound interest. Why? Because we know that compound interest can be taken as amount minus principal, since the total amount is nothing but compound interest plus principal. So first we need to find out the total amount, and from that, when we subtract the principal amount, we get the required answer. So as for the given question, the values here are principal should be 10,000, T1, T2 and T3 are all equal to 1. Why? Because T1 is for first year, T2 is for second year, that is a period of 1 year again, and T3 is for third year, that is again a period of 1 year. And R1 is equal to 5, R2 equals to 10, and R3 equals to 20. So let us first find out the total amount that has to be paid at the end of 3 years with the help of the given formula. So we can say that the total amount here will be equal to, the principal is 10,000 into 1 plus 5 by 100 into 1 plus 10 by 100 into 1 plus 20 by 100. That actually is power 1 and power 1, since T1, T2 and T3 are equal to 1. So this can be simplified as 10,000 into 105 by 100, since 100 is LCM, 100 plus 5 will give you 105, 105 by 100, into the second term here would be 100 plus 10, that is 110 by 100, and the third term would be 100 plus 20, 120 by 100. So by simplifying this calculation, we can get the total amount. So as you can see here, the 200 gets cancelled with 10,000, and we have 105 into 110 into 120 divided by 100. 120 by 100 can be taken as 6 by 5, since this is 20 into 6 and 20 into 5. And 5 goes 21 times in 105. So the final answer here for the total amount would be 21 into 110 into 6. So by simplifying this, we can get the total amount. 21 into 6 is equal to 126. 126 into 110. 126 into 110. So by multiplying 126 with 110, we get the answer as 13,860. So we can say that the total amount that has to be paid at the end of 3 years is 13,860. But since the question says what is the total interest that has to be paid after 3 years, from this total amount we need to subtract the principal. The principal here is nothing but 10,000. So the total interest can be taken as I've already discussed, amount minus principal. So 13,860 minus the principal amount 10,000. This comes out to be 3,860 rupees. So the total interest after 3 years would be 3,860 rupees. So this is how, with the help of the formula for total amount, we can first always calculate the total amount, and from that we can subtract the principal to get the compound interest. If the question is what is the total amount that needs to be paid by Vivek at the end of 3 years, we can stop here itself. But since it is about interest, we need to go for the next step, that is amount minus principal. But friends, going by this formula is a lengthy procedure. Why? Because we need to do the solution in a step-by-step manner, and then from that we need to subtract the principal to get the required answer. Instead of this, we can again use the concept of percentages to find out the required answer. For example, here we know that in the first year the rate of interest is 5%, for the second year it is 10%, and for the third year it is 20% per annum. Now, as discussed in model 2, compound interest can always be calculated as net or effective percentage. That is A plus B plus AB by 100%, where A is the rate of interest for first year and B is the rate of interest for second year. But in model number 2, A and B were equal since the rate of interest was fixed. But as in this case, the rate of interest is varying from year to year, A and B will be different from each other. So what we need to do here is find out the net or effective percentage for these three percentages, and that will be equal to the compound interest in terms of percentage. So let us first calculate the net or effective percentage for 5 and 10%. As already discussed, the formula is A plus B plus AB by 100. That is 5 plus 10 plus 5 into 10 by 100. 5 into 10 is 50. 50 by 100 is 1 by 2 or 0.5. So 5 plus 10 plus 0.5 would be equal to 15 plus 0.5, that is 15.5%. That means the compound interest for the first 2 years together is 15.5%. After calculating the net percentage for the first 2 years, let us now take the effective value that we have obtained with 20% to find out the overall percentage for 3 years. And again, that can be taken as A plus B plus AB by 100. So that will be 20 plus 15.5 plus 20 into 15.5 divided by 100. So 20 into 1 and 20 into 5 is 100. And 5 here goes 3.1 times. So the overall answer here would be 20 plus 15.5, that is 35.5. 35.5 plus 3.1 would be 38.6. So the overall answer would be 38.6%. So now we can say that the total compound interest for these three values together would be 38.6%. So our question is 38.6% is equal to what? And we know that the principal is 10,000. That means 100% is equivalent to 10,000. So if 100% is equivalent to 10,000, 38.6% would be equivalent to what? We can cross multiply, or otherwise even directly we can say that the compound interest here should be equal to 3,860 rupees. So this is how you can find out the compound interest directly with the help of net or effective percentage formula. And here we need not find out the total amount and then subtract 10,000 to get the required answer. Directly the compound interest percentage can be obtained and we can cross multiply to find out the required answer. Let us now take the fourth model from this topic, which is based on the difference between compound interest and simple interest for a given period of time. Let us first understand the formula to be used to solve questions based on differences. Let the difference between compound interest and simple interest for a period of t years at the rate of r% per annum be d. Then the principal p is given as, we have two different cases here. The first case is, if time t is equal to 2 years, then the principal p can be calculated as d into 100 squared divided by r squared, where d is the difference between compound interest and simple interest, and r is the rate of interest per annum. And remember, this formula is applicable when the time period is given as 2 years. And the second case here is when the time is equal to 3 years. That means for a period of 3 years. There, the principal p can be calculated as d into 100 cube divided by r squared into 300 plus r, where again d is the difference between ci and si, and r is the rate of interest per annum. And this formula has to be applied when the time period is equal to 3 years. So with the help of these two formulas, we can solve the questions related to difference from this topic. Remember friends, we don't have any formula for a time period of 1 year. Why? Because as we have learned in the introduction part of this topic, there is no difference between simple interest and compound interest for the first period. That is for the first year. So we don't have any formula related to the difference for a period of 1 year, as the difference is always 0 for the first period for a given rate of interest and the given principal. Let us now take an example based on the concept of difference that we have just learned. The question here is, find the difference between simple interest and compound interest at 5% per annum for 2 years on a principal of rupees 2,000. So very clearly we know that the rate of interest is 5% per annum, time period is 2 years, and the principal amount is rupees 2,000, and we are supposed to find out the difference between the simple interest and the compound interest. As we have already discussed, the principal can be taken as d into 100 squared by r squared when the time period is equal to 2 years. So as the time period given in the question is 2 years, we can take the principal as d into 100 squared by r squared. So let us now substitute the values at the proper places and find out the required answer. So we know that principal is equal to 2000. So this 2000 should be equal to d into 100 squared divided by r squared. R is nothing but 5 here. So 5 squared. So from this, the difference d can be taken as 2000 into 5 squared divided by 100 squared. 100 squared is nothing but 10,000. Now 2000 goes 5 times. And 5 and 5 gets cancelled. So we can say that the difference between simple interest and compound interest in this case will be rupees 5. So this is how, with the help of the formula, that is principal equals to d into 100 squared by r squared, we can find out the difference or principal or the rate of interest when the other two values are specified. Let us now look at the other way of solving this question. We know that if the rate of interest is 5% per annum and the time period is 2 years, the simple interest earned in 2 years would be 5% plus 5%, that is equal to 10%. And the compound interest earned would be a plus b plus ab by 100, since it is an effective percentage. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 into 5 by 100, that is equal to 10.25%. Now as we can understand, the difference between compound interest and simple interest is 10.25% minus 10%. So the difference d, that is nothing but ci minus si, would be equal to 10.25% minus 10%. So very clearly the difference here is equal to 0.25%, which has to be calculated. And we know that the principal is 2000. So principal is equal to 100%, and that is equivalent to 2000. So again, by cross multiplication, we can find out that the difference here would be 5 rupees. So either we can use the formula, that is P equals to D into 100 squared by R squared, or simply find out the simple interest and compound interest and find out the equivalent percentage. If you really try to observe here, we very well know that the simple interest and compound interest on principal amount for the 2 years will be same. So here we can say that the actual difference between SI and CI will be this part, that is the interest on interest in the second year. So we can try to avoid the calculation of all these things and simply consider what will be A into B by 100, where A and B is nothing but the rate of interest. Why? Because whatever we get simple interest in the 2 years, that will be same as the compound interest on principal for 2 years. The only extra part is the interest on first year's interest. So directly we can say that the difference would be 5% of 5%, which is equal to 0.25%. And that 0.25% has to be calculated if 100% is 2000. So no need to write all these steps even when you are following the second method. We can simply understand the difference as percentage of percentage and then find out the required answer. Let us now take an example based on the concept of difference for a period of 3 years. The question is, if the difference between the simple interest and compound interest on some amount at 20% per annum for 3 years is rupees 48, then what must be the principal amount? So as you can see here, the rate of interest is 20% per annum, time is 3 years, and the difference is given as 48. The difference between SI and CI is equal to 48. And we are supposed to find out what must be the principal amount. Now we know that the formula to be used here is P equals to D into 100 cube divided by R squared into 300 plus R. Since the time period is given as 3 years. So for 3 years, we use the formula as shown. So P should be equal to difference into 100 cube by R squared into 300 plus R. We know that the difference is 48 and rate of interest is 20% per annum. So let us substitute the values and find out the principal amount. So this can be taken as 48 into 100 cube divided by R squared. R is nothing but 20 here. So 20 squared into 300 plus R, that is 20. So this will be equal to 48 into 100 cube divided by 20 square is 400 into 320. Now by simplifying this, the zeros here get cancelled and this becomes 100 square. 4 goes 12 times. So the answer would be 12 into 100 square is 10,000 divided by 320. So this is 4 into 3 and 4 into 80. Again a 0 gets cancelled and the final answer would be 3 into 1000. 3000 divided by 8, which comes out to be 375 rupees. So we can say that the principal amount should be 375 rupees for the difference to be 48 and the rate of interest being 20% per annum for 3 years. So this is how we can simply use the shortcut formula to get the required answer. Friends, solving this question with the help of percentages would become a little tedious. Why? Because we need to consider the difference for 3 years. So the best way to solve this question is to use the shortcut formula, that is P equals to D into 100 cube divided by R squared into 300 plus R. Let us now take the fifth model from simple interest and compound interest, where we are going to discuss questions where the total amount for 2 different periods is given and we are supposed to find out the principal amount or the rate of interest. Let us have a look at the first question. On simple interest, a sum of money becomes rupees 1120 in 4 years and rupees 1360 in 7 years. How much money was deposited? So as you can see here, the given case is for simple interest and it says a sum of money becomes 1120 in 4 years and 1360 in 7 years. As I've already mentioned in one of the previous questions, whenever the term becomes is used, we always refer to the total amount. So very clearly, this 1120 is the total amount in 4 years and 1360 is the total amount in 7 years. We know that the total amount is nothing but principal plus simple interest. So the total amount here for 4 years is 1120. So this 1120 is nothing but the principal amount plus the simple interest of 4 years. And similarly 1360 is nothing but the principal amount plus the simple interest for 7 years. So now we can say that 1120 is equal to principal plus simple interest for 4 years. And 1360 is equal to principal plus simple interest for 7 years. Why? Because total amount is principal plus SI. So this is SI for 4 years in the first case, as the time period is 4 years, and it is SI for 7 years in second case, as the given time period is 7 years. So this is equation number 1 and equation number 2. Now by finding out the difference of these two equations, that is equation 2 minus equation number 1, we can say that 1360 minus 1120, 1360 minus 1120 should be equal to principal and principal gets cancelled, simple interest of 7 years minus simple interest of 4 years. So now we can very clearly understand that simple interest of 7 years minus simple interest of 4 years is simple interest of 3 years. That is nothing but 7 years interest minus 4 years interest. So we get the interest for 3 years. So simple interest for 3 years is equal to 1360 minus 1120, which is equal to 240 rupees. So very clearly, simple interest of 3 years is 240. From this, we can say that simple interest of 1 year is equal to 240 divided by 3. Since for 3 years it is 240, for 1 year it should be 1/3 of 240, which is equal to 80 rupees. So we can understand that every year the simple interest is 80 rupees. Let us now find out the simple interest for 4 years. If simple interest for 1 year is 80, simple interest for 4 years would be 4 into simple interest of 1 year. That is nothing but 4 into 80, which is equal to 320 rupees. So now we have known what is the simple interest for 4 years. That is equal to 320. So now if we substitute this 320 in the first equation, we get the required principal amount. So we can say that 1120 should be equal to principal amount plus the simple interest of 4 years is 320. So from this, the principal is equal to 1120 minus 320, that is equal to 800 rupees. Or otherwise, we can find out the simple interest for 7 years and use it in the second equation. So either find it out for 4 years and then take the difference to get the principal, or find out the simple interest for 7 years and use it in the second equation to find out the principal. In both the cases, answer would be rupees 800. So this is how, in a step-by-step procedure, we can find out the principal. In order to avoid the number of steps, one point that we can understand here is interest for 3 years, or strictly speaking, simple interest for 3 years will be equal to 1360 minus 1120. This 1360 is nothing but amount in 7 years, the total amount in 7 years, and 1120 is the total amount in 4 years. So one point which is very clear is amount of 7 years minus total amount of 4 years is equal to the interest of 3 years. That is nothing but 7 minus 4, 3 years. So if we can remember this point, directly we can start from this step, find out the interest for 1 year and then find it out for 4 years to get the required principal. So just remember that amount for n years, total amount for n years minus total amount for n years would be equal to simple interest of m minus n years. So if we can remember this point, we can cut short the number of steps required in this question. Amount of 10 years minus amount of 4 years will be simple interest of 10 minus 4, that is equal to 6 years. Or amount of 8 years minus amount of 2 years will be equal to simple interest of 8 years minus 2 years, 6 years. Or likewise, whatever m or n is given to you, you can just subtract that and find out the simple interest for those many years. And remember friends, this particular point is applicable only in case of simple interest. We cannot say that the total amount of m years minus total amount of n years is equal to compound interest of m minus n years. Why? Because in case of simple interest, the interest remains constant every year. So we can directly take the differences of the two amounts and find out the simple interest for the number of years. But in case of compound interest, the interest increases every year, as we have discussed in the introduction part. So remember that this particular point is not applicable in case of compound interest, but is applicable only in case of simple interest. Let us now take another example based on total amounts for two different periods. A sum of money invested at compound interest amounts to rupees 800 in 3 years and rupees 882 in 5 years. What is the rate of interest? So here we are supposed to find out the rate of interest R. The important point to be understood here is whenever this question says a sum of money amounts to, we always refer it to the total amount. Why? Because a principal always amounts to some total amount after some time. So here when it says amounts to 800, this 800 is the total amount in 3 years. and 882 in 5 years. So this 882 is also the total amount for 5 years. Now, as this is a case of compound interest, we know that amount is calculated as P into 1 plus R by 100 whole raised to the power of T for compound interest. And understand that amount for 5 years minus amount for 3 years, amount for 5 years minus amount for 3 years cannot be taken as compound interest for 2 years. As discussed earlier in the previous example, amount for 5 years minus amount for 3 years is equal to simple interest of 2 years. That is 5 minus 3, 2 years. But amount for 5 years minus amount for 3 years cannot be taken as compound interest for 2 years. Why? Because compound interest changes every year. So directly we cannot have an equation. So never try to take it as compound interest of 2 years and then find out the answer. You have to go by the direct formula to solve this question. So now, as given in the question, amount for 3 years is 800 and amount for 5 years is 882. So going by the formula, we can say that principal into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 3 should be equal to 800. That is nothing but the formula for amount. Principal into 1 plus R by 100 whole power T. So when time is 3 years, the amount is 800. Similarly, principal into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 5. When the time period is 5 years, the total amount is 882. So this is equation number 1 and equation number 2. Now in this case, to solve the two equations, we need to divide the second equation by the first one. So let us divide second equation by first one. We get principal into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 5 divided by principal into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 3 equals to 882 divided by 800. So as you can see here, principal and principal gets cancelled and 1 plus R by 100 whole power 5 divided by 1 plus R by 100 whole power 3 will be equal to 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 2. Why? Because a power m divided by a power n will be equal to a power m minus n from the concept of indices. So this is like a power 5 divided by a power 3 should be equal to a power 5 minus 3, which is 2. So 1 plus R by 100 whole power 2 is equal to 882 by 800, or this can be taken as 441 by 400. So from this we can say that 1 plus R by 100 should be equal to root over 441 by 400. That is nothing but applying square root on both the sides. So we get 1 plus R by 100 equals to root over 441 is 21 and root over 400 is 20. Now from simplification of this step, we get R will be equal to 21 by 20 minus 1, which is equals to 1 by 20 into 100. So this comes out to be 5. So we can say that the rate of interest is 5% per annum. So this is how we can divide the two equations in terms of amount to get the required rate of interest. Let us now take the sixth model from the topic of simple and compound interest, where the compound interest for first year and for second year is given and we are supposed to find out the principal amount. Let us look at the question. On a particular amount, the compound interest at the end of 1 year is rupees 40 and in the second year is rupees 42. How much money was deposited? So as you can see here, the case is for compound interest and at the end of 1 year the interest is 40 and in the second year is 42. Let me make it clear, 42 is not the compound interest for 2 years. 42 is the compound interest only for second year. So for the first year it is 40 and for the second year it is 42. And we are supposed to find out how much money was deposited. Now the money that gets deposited is nothing but the principal amount, right? So we are supposed to find out what will be the principal in this case. Generally, this question is considered to be a difficult one and students try to avoid this. But if we go in a smart way using the concept of percentages, this question can be answered in less than 10 seconds. But let us first understand the general way of solving the question. Now as given here, the compound interest for 1 year is 40 or for first year is 40 and for the second year is 42. So we can understand that the compound interest for first year is equal to 40 and compound interest for second year is equal to 42. So from this, total compound interest for 2 years would be equal to interest of first year plus interest of second year, that is 40 plus 42. which is equal to 82 rupees. Let me repeat it once again. For the first year it is 40 and for the second year it is 42. We are trying to find out the compound interest that is earned in 2 years together. So for the first year 40 plus second year 42, the total would be 82 rupees. Now going by the formula of compound interest, we can say that P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T, that is nothing but for 1 year, minus 1 should be equal to rupees 40. That is nothing but we are using the formula of CI and equating it to 40. So we know that for first year it is 40 rupees. So P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power T. Whole power T here is nothing but 1 year, minus 1 is equal to 40. Similarly, let us use the same formula, that is for compound interest for 2 years. So we can say that P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power 2 minus 1 would be equal to 82. So these are the two equations that we have. P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power 1 minus 1 is 40 and P of 1 plus R by 100 whole power 2 minus 1 is equal to 82. So compound interest for 1 year and compound interest for 2 years. So we have got two equations and two variables. The two variables are principal and rate of interest. And we know that two equations in two variables can be solved. But then solving these two equations is a really difficult task. And that is the reason students try to avoid this question. So let us see how to solve this question without using the formula and by the concept of percentages. So let us avoid this whole concept of using the formula. Now the point here is we know that for the first year the CI was 40 and for the second year it is 42. Let us understand what will be the rate of interest from these two values. What we need to do here is find out the percentage change between 40 and 42. And that will be equal to the rate of interest. So simply remember that rate of interest is nothing but the percentage change between 40 and 42. So we know that percentage change is equal to final value minus initial value by initial value into 100. And that should be equal to the rate of interest in case of compound interest. So always when we know the compound interest for first year and for second year, by taking the percentage change between these two values, we can get the rate of interest. So the rate of interest here will be equal to final value, that is 42 minus initial value 40 by 40 into 100, which is equal to 2 by 40. 42 minus 40 is 2. 2 by 40 into 100 or 200 by 40, that is 5. So we can say that the rate of interest is 5%. Why? Because whatever change comes into picture from first year to second year is only because of this rate of interest. So that is the reason whatever we get as percentage change should be taken as the rate of interest. So the rate of interest for this case is 5% per annum. And now we need to find out how much money was deposited or the principal amount. We know that principal amount is nothing but 100% of the value. Now, if we try to go by the concept of percentages, we know that in the first year, we get R% as interest. Let's say the rate of interest is 10%. So what we get in the first year is only 10% of the value. If the rate of interest is 8%, what we get in the first year is only 8%. Similarly, if the rate of interest is 12.5%. So whatever interest we get in the first year should be equal to that percentage. Why? Because for the first year, we get interest only on the principal amount. Now here, as the interest earned in the first year is 40, we can say that the 40 rupees is equivalent to 5%. Because in the first year, we get interest only on the principal amount. That is 5% of 100%, which is equal to 5%. And that should be taken as first year's interest. That is 40 rupees. So we know that 5% is 40 and we are supposed to find out how much money was deposited. That means the principal amount. Principal P should be equal to 100%. So this is equivalent to what? So now by cross multiplication of these two values, we can find out the required answer. That will be equal to 5. We can say that principal P will be equal to 100 into 40 divided by 5. As 5 goes 8 times, the principal here is equal to 800. So this is how in just 2 steps we can solve the given question and we can avoid the lengthy way of using the formula. The first step here is find out the percentage change between first year's compound interest and second year's compound interest. That is nothing but the rate of interest in terms of percentage. And once we get the rate of interest, we can equate that rate of interest to the value that we have obtained in first year. That is 40 rupees. And principal 100% can be calculated by cross multiplication. Let us now take the next model from simple and compound interest, where we are going to discuss a very interesting question. Generally, in case of compound interest, we have learned in the beginning of the session that the interest changes every year, and that happens because the principal changes every year. Why? Because the new principal will always be the previous year's interest plus the previous year's principal. For example, the principal of second year will be principal of first year plus interest earned in first year. The principal of fourth year will be principal of third year plus the interest earned in third year. So this is the basic concept that we have learned in the beginning of the session, that how does the principal change in case of a compound interest. Now, in general, the principal changes at the end of each year. Why? Because compounding is done on a yearly basis. But in some special cases, the compounding is done on half-yearly basis or quarterly basis. That means, in case of half-yearly compounding, the interest is calculated at the end of every half a year or at the end of 6 months. And if the interest is calculated after every 6 months, it is obvious that the principal also changes after every 6 months. Why? Because it is a compounding procedure. As and when the interest is calculated, it has to be compounded to the principal amount. So in case of half-yearly compounding, the principal changes after every 6 months. Similarly, in case of quarterly compounding, we understand that a quarter is nothing but 1/4 of a year, that is 3 months. So in case of quarterly compounding, the interest is calculated at the end of every 3 months. And as the interest is calculated after every 3 months, the principal also has to change after every 3 months. So how to find out the total compound interest or the total amount in case of half-yearly compounding or quarterly compounding? Or similarly, there is one more case which is called biennially compounding. Biennial means for a period of 2 years. So in case of biennially compounding, the interest is calculated after every 2 years. So the principal will change only after 2 years, but not after every year. So let us understand how to do calculations related to compound interest or the total amount in these special cases with the help of a simple example. Let's say that the principal amount is rupees 10,000, the time period is 2 years, and the rate of interest is 20% per annum. So for a yearly compounding, that means when the interest is calculated after every 1 year and the principal also changes after every 1 year. That is the general case. So generally, in case of a yearly compounding, we can directly use the formula, that is compound interest equals to P of 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus 1. And the amount can be calculated as P of 1 plus R by 100 whole power T. Or in order to avoid the lengthy procedure, we have understood one more concept, that is effective or net percentage, A plus B plus AB by 100. So in case of yearly compounding, the three values can be substituted in the formula, or we can use net or effective percentage to get the required answer. But what to do in case of half-yearly compounding? Remember friends, whatever be the type of compounding, whether it is half-yearly, quarterly or biennially, the formula remains the same. Compound interest will always be P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power of T minus 1. And amount will always be P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power of T. But the way we substitute the values will be changing a bit in each of these cases. So let us understand what will be the values in case of half-yearly compounding. Now the first point here is, what will be the principal for half-yearly compounding? Friends, whether the compounding is done half-yearly or quarterly or biennially, the principal is not going to get affected. Why? Because principal amount is the amount which has been borrowed. So it is no way related to whether it is half-yearly compounding or quarterly compounding. So principal remains same, that is it will be equal to 10,000 even in case of half-yearly compounding. Now coming to time, the total time given here is 2 years. So for a yearly compounding, T will be equal to 2. That means 2 periods where each period is equal to 1 year. But when we go for half-yearly compounding, half a year is equal to 6 months. And we know that in a span of 2 years, we get 4 6 months. Or we can say that there are 4 half years in a total span of 2 years. That means here the time that we substitute in the formula should be equal to 4. 4 periods where each period is equal to 6 months. So this is 4 into 6 months, which is equal to 2 years. And coming to rate of interest, it is equal to 20% per annum. So for a yearly compounding, R should be equal to 20. That is 20% for 1 year. But since this is a half yearly compounding, R should be taken as 10% only. Why? Because for 1 year, if it is 20%, for half a year, the interest generated will be only 10%. So R here should be taken as 10%. This is 10% per period, where the period is equal to 6 months. So with the help of these three values, we can substitute in the formula and get the required answer. That is either the compound interest or the amount. Now coming to quarterly calculations, again the principal doesn't get affected. It will be equal to rupees 10,000, as it is nowhere related to the type of compounding. Only the time period and the rate of interest would change. So the time period here will be equal to 8 periods. Why? Because 1 quarter is equal to 3 months. And in a span of 2 years, we get 8 quarters. 1 year has got 4 quarters. So 2 years will have 2 into 4, that is 8 quarters. So the time that will be used in the formula should be 8 periods, where each period is 3 months or 1 quarter. And coming to rate of interest, the given rate of interest is 20% per annum. That means for 1 whole year, the interest generated would be 20%. So for only a quarter of a year or for only 3 months, the interest generated would be just 5%. 5% per period, where a period is equal to 1 quarter or 3 months. So by substituting these three values in the formula, we can get the required answer. And let us now look at what happens in case of a biennially calculation. As discussed in the previous two cases, principal would remain same, 10,000 as it is. But the time period and rate of interest would be changing in this case. The time period here will be equal to only 1 period. Why? Because the total time given in the question is 2 years. And since it is a biennially calculation, 1 period will be equal to 2 years. So this whole span has got only 1 period of a biennially calculation. That is the reason time should be taken as only 1 year. And coming to rate of interest, we get 20% per annum. In general, 20% per year. But since this is biennially calculation, it should be taken for 2 years together. So if it is 20% for 1 year, for 2 years it would be 40%. So R should be taken as 40%. Remember friends, this is not 40% per annum. This is 40% per period. That is, a period is equal to 2 years. So 40% per period and only 1 period. Here we have 5% per period, where a period is equal to 1 quarter, and we have 8 quarters or 8 periods. Here we have 10% per period, where a period is equal to half a year, and total we have got 4 periods because the total time is given as 2 years. So this is how, based on the given time period and the rate of interest, generally the given time period would be in years and the rate of interest would be percentage per annum. So based on these values, we need to decide what will be the T and R that has to be substituted in the formula or the net or effective percentage concept to find out the answer for various types of compounding. It is half yearly or quarterly or biennial. So now with these values, we can find out the required answers. Let us now take an example based on the various types of compounding that we have just understood. The question here is, a sum of rupees 40,000 is invested for 18 months at 20% per annum on compound interest. If the interest is compounded half yearly, what will be the interest to be paid? So we need to find out what will be the interest that has to be paid at the end of 18 months. And as given in the question, a sum of rupees 40,000 is invested. So very clearly the principal is equal to 40,000 for a time period of 18 months. So the time here is 18 months at 20% per annum. So the rate of interest is 20% per annum, and this is on a compound interest basis. And it is also mentioned that the interest is compounded half yearly. So what will be the total interest that has to be paid? So as given the question, the principal is equal to 40,000, time period is 18 months, and the rate of interest is 20% per annum. And we need to find out what will be the total compound interest. We know that the formula for compound interest is P of 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T minus 1. So by substituting these values in proper format in the formula, we get the required answer. And we have very well understood that for a half yearly compounding or any other type of compounding other than yearly compounding, we need to change the values that we substitute. The formula remains same, only the values of T and R would change. So let us first understand what would be the values for half yearly compounding. As discussed earlier, the principal will not get affected due to different types of compounding. It is only the amount that has been borrowed. So it is no way related to whether we do half yearly compounding or quarterly compounding or yearly compounding. So principal should be 40,000 as it is. the given time period is 18 months. And since the compounding is done on a half yearly basis, we need to understand in this total span of 18 months, how many times do we get half years, or how many times do we get 6 months. So very clearly 18 months here is equal to 3 6 months or 3 half years. So we can say that the time that has to be used in the calculation should be 3. This is 3 periods where each period is equal to 6 months. And the given rate of interest is 20% per annum. That means 20% for 1 year. But since this is a half yearly compounding, the rate of interest that we need to use should be only 10%. 10% per period, where each period is 6 months. So these are the 3 values that have to be used in finding out the answer. Now either we can use the formula of compound interest to get the answer, or otherwise we can go by the concept of percentages that we have understood in model number 2. And as we know that finding out the answer with the help of percentage is faster when compared to the formula, let us try to do that. We know that the rate of interest is 10% and there are 3 periods. So altogether we have got 3 10% here, and we need to find out the effective percentage that would be equal to the compound interest. So applying the formula for first 2 percentages, we get 10 plus 10 plus 10 into 10 by 100. So zeros anyway get cancelled. We have 10 plus 10, 20 plus 1, 21%. Now with this 21% and the left out 10%, we again need to apply A plus B plus AB by 100% to find out the overall compound interest. So the net or effective percentage would be 21 plus 10 plus 21 into 10 by 100. So 0 gets cancelled and 21 by 10 would be 2.1. So 21 plus 10, 31, 31 plus 2.1 is 33.1. So very clearly the overall or the effective percentage for all these 3 values here would be 33.1%. So we can say that the compound interest that is generated here in the span of 18 months would be 33.1%. And that has to be calculated. As the question says, what will be the interest that has to be paid? So we know that the principal here is 40,000. So we can say 100% is equivalent to 40,000 rupees, and we need to find out the compound interest, which we have calculated as 33.1% is equal to what? By cross multiplication we get the required answer. So we can say that the compound interest here would be equal to 33.1 into 40,000 divided by 100. And by doing the calculations we get the answer as 33.1 into 400. That would be equal to 13,240 rupees. So the final answer here is 13,240. Let us now take the next model from simple and compound interest, where we are supposed to find out the total compound interest or the total amount for a given time period, which is in terms of fraction. Let us first understand what is the formula to be used to solve such questions. When the given time period is a fraction, for example, the time period is equal to A B by C years, where A is an integer and B by C is a fraction, then the total amount at the end of the period at R% per annum on a principal amount P will be given as you can see here, the total amount can be calculated as P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of A into 1 plus B by C times R by 100. So by using this formula, we can find out the total amount at the end of the given period. As you can see here, A is the integer value in the time period and B by C is the fractional value given in the time period. So by using this, we can simply say that total amount will be P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power integer value into 1 plus fractional part multiplied with rate of interest divided by 100. And if the compound interest is required, then it can be taken as the total amount minus principal. So if compound interest is to be calculated, we first need to find out the amount, and then from that when we subtract the principal, we get the required answer. For example, let's say that the given time period is equal to 3 by 4 years. As you can see here, this is like 3 complete years and 3/4 of a year. So in such cases, the total amount can be taken as the given principal into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 3. That is nothing but the integer part 3 into 1 plus 3 by 4 times R divided by 100. So from this we can find out the amount, and then when we subtract the principal from the amount, we can get the required compound interest. So this is how we can solve questions related to calculation of compound interest or total amount for a given time, which is in terms of fractions. Let us now take an example where we need to find out the compound interest for a given fractional time period. The question here is, an amount of rupees 10,000 was deposited in a bank for a period of 27 months at the rate of 20% per annum on compound interest. What will be the amount received on maturity? So as given in the question, an amount of rupees 10,000 was deposited. So the principal is 10,000 in a bank for a period of 27 months. The time period is 27 months and the rate of interest is 20% per annum. And the calculations must be done based on compound interest. So the question is, what will be the amount received on maturity? So the amount received on maturity will be nothing but the total amount, that is principal plus interest. So here we need to find out what will be the total amount for the given principal, time and rate of interest. So the principal here is equal to 10,000. The rate of interest is 20% per annum and the given time period, and the time period is given as 27 months. As we have already learned in the initial modules that the time that we substitute or use in the formula should always be in terms of years. So let us try to convert this time period of 27 months in terms of number of years. Now 27 months is nothing but 24 months plus 3 months, and 24 months can be taken as 2 complete years. 2 complete years and 3 months. 3 months again is 1 quarter of a year or 1/4 of a year. As 1 year has got 12 months, 3 months will be equal to 3 by 12. That is 1/4 of a year. So we can say that this is 1/4 of a year. So the total time period here is 2 years plus 1/4 of a year, which can be taken as 2 1/4 years. As you can see here, the time period is in terms of a fraction. So we need to use the proper formula to get the required answer. And the formula that we have discussed was amount should be equal to principal into 1 plus r by 100 whole to the power of a into 1 plus b by c r divided by 100, where a is nothing but the integer part of the time period and b by c is the fractional part of the time period. So as you can see here, the integer part is 2. So a is equal to 2 and b by c is equal to 1/4. Now let us now substitute these values and get the required answer. So the amount can be taken as principal, that is 10,000 into 1 plus rate of interest is 20%. So 20/100 whole to the power of a. A is nothing but 2 complete years into 1 plus b by c is equal to 1/4 into the rate of interest again is 20% divided by 100. So this comes out to be 10 to the power of 4, that is nothing but 10,000 into 1 plus 20/100 is 120/100. So this is 120/100 whole squared into this 4 gets cancelled 5 times. So this becomes 1 plus 5/100 and 1 plus 5/100 will be 105/100. As 100 is the LCM, we get 100 plus 5, that is 105 divided by 100. So 105 divided by 100. Now 120/100 can be taken as 6/5. And 105/100 is equal to 21/20. So the final answer here would be 10 to the power of 4 into 6/5 whole square will be equal to 36/25 into 21/20. 25 into 20 is 500 and 10 to the power of 4 divided by 500 or 10,000 divided by 500 would be equal to 20. So this can be cancelled and we get into 20. So the final answer here is 36 into 21 into 20. So the final answer here would be 15,120 rupees. So this is the total compound interest that we get at the end of 2 years and 3 months or 2 1/4 years. So simply use the formula and do the proper calculation to get the required answer. In this model, let us take a typical question where we have to find out the difference between simple interest and compound interest, but the rates of interest for each one of them are different. Let's look at the question. What is the difference between compound interest and simple interest for the sum of rupees 20,000 over a 2-year period if the compound interest is calculated at 20% per annum and the simple interest is calculated at 23% per annum? So as you can see here, the principal amount is 20,000 rupees and the time period is 2 years. And we have to find out the difference between compound interest and simple interest. But the point here is compound interest is calculated at 20% per annum and simple interest is calculated at 23% per annum. That means the rate of compound interest and the rate of simple interest are different from each other. Now to solve this question, we cannot use the formula that we have discussed for difference between SI and CI. Why? Because those formulae that we have discussed in one of the earlier models are applicable only when the rate of interest is same for both CI as well as SI. As the rates of interest here are different, we need to calculate both CI and SI separately and then find out the required answer. But then doing the calculation is not a very lengthy procedure. Going by the smart way of solving the problem, we know that if the rate of simple interest is equal to 23% and the time is 2 years, then the total simple interest that we get would be 23% plus 23%. That is nothing but 46%. And as given in the question, the rate of compound interest is 20% per annum and the time period is 2 years. So again, going by the concept of percentages, we can say that the total compound interest would be A plus B plus AB by 100%, where A is nothing but 20 and B also is 20. So it will be equal to 20 plus 20 plus 20 into 20 by 100 in terms of percentage. So 20 plus 20 is 40 and this is equal to 4. 40 plus 4 is 44%. So as you can see here, the total simple interest that is generated is 46%. And the total compound interest is 44%. And we are supposed to find out the difference between these two. So we can say that the difference here, that is SI minus CI, would be equal to 46% minus 44%. That is equal to 2%. And this 2% has to be calculated. We know that principal is 20,000. That means 100% is equivalent to 20,000. So if 100% is 20,000, 2% will be how much? We know that 1% of 20,000 is 200 rupees. So 2% would be 400 rupees. So the answer for this question would be 400, which can be obtained by cross multiplication. So this is how we can simply find out the effective compound interest percentage and the total simple interest percentage and take the difference between these two to get the required answer. Let us now take the next and the last model from this topic, where we are going to discuss some questions related to simple interest. The first example here is Varun borrows rupees 1500 from two money lenders. He pays interest at the rate of 12% per annum for one loan and at the rate of 14% per annum for the other. How much does he borrow at 12% per annum if the total interest paid at the end of the year is rupees 186? So as you can see, Varun has borrowed 1500 from two different persons. He pays interest at 12% per annum for one loan and at the rate of 14% per annum for the other. So we need to find out how much money was borrowed at the rate of 12% per annum if the total interest at the end of 1 year is rupees 186. So the point to be understood here is, from two different persons, the total amount that Varun has borrowed is 1500. So let us assume that Varun has borrowed P1 at 12% per annum and P2 at 14% per annum. Let us assume that the simple interest on the first loan is SI1 and the simple interest on the second loan is SI2. That means simple interest on P1 at 12% per annum is SI1. And simple interest on P2 at 14% per annum is SI2. And also we know that the total interest, that is SI1 plus SI2, is equal to 186 rupees. And we need to find out how much has been borrowed at 12% per annum. That means P1 is equal to what has to be calculated. So from the given question, we know that P1 plus P2, that means the total of both the loans, the principal amount from first lender and the principal amount from the second lender, totally amounts to 1500 rupees. So the total principal amount P1 plus P2 is 1500. And we also know that simple interest from first one plus simple interest from second one is 186. Now, the first amount has been borrowed at the rate of 12% per annum. So the simple interest that we get would be 12% of P1. So we can say 12% of P1 and the simple interest from second one would be 14%. Why? Because second amount has been borrowed at 14%. So 14% of P2 is equal to 186 rupees. So this is what we can understand from the second equation. So this can be taken as 12 by 100 P1 plus 14 by 100 P2 equals to 186. Now by taking 2 common, we get 6 P1 plus 7 P2 divided by 100 equals to 93. So this equation comes out to be 6 P1 plus 7 P2 equals to 93 into 100, that is 9300. So as you can see here, we have got two equations. One equation is for the total of two loans, that is 1500, and the second equation is in terms of 6P1 plus 7P2 equals to 9300. Two equations with two variables can be solved. The two variables here are P1 and P2. So we now need to solve these two equations such that we can find out the value P1. Now to find out what is P1, we need to cancel P2 from both the equations. And to do that, we need to multiply this equation with 7. Why? Because this becomes 7P2 and this is already in terms of 7P2. So once the coefficients are equal, the two values can be cancelled by subtracting the equations. So let us multiply equation number 1 with 7. So we get here 7P1 plus 7P2 equals to 1500 into 7 is 10,500. And we know that the second equation is 6P1 plus 7P2 equals to 9300. So these are the two equations that we have. Now by subtracting these two equations, we get 7P1 minus 6P1 is P1 plus this 7P2 and 7P2 gets cancelled equals to 10,500 minus 9,300. That would be 1200 rupees. So very clearly the amount that has been borrowed at 12% per annum, P1, is equal to 1200 rupees. So this is how you can simply frame the proper equations in terms of P1 and P2 and solve those two equations to find out P1 or P2 respectively. Let us now take another typical example based on simple interest. The question is, the simple interest on a sum of money will be rupees 300 after 5 years. In the next 5 years, if the principal is trebled, then what will be the total interest at the end of 10th year? So very clearly the question says the simple interest on some principal amount is rupees 300 for 5 years. That means the total interest for 5 years is 300 rupees. In the next 5 years, the principal is trebled. That means the principal becomes 3 times. Then what will be the total interest at the end of 10th year? So as given in the question, the simple interest for 5 years is equal to rupees 300. And in the next 5 years, the principal is trebled. That means the principal amount P becomes 3 times. So we can say that the new principal P dash is equal to 3 times the original principal P. We know that simple interest is equal to P into T into R by 100. That means simple interest is proportional to the principal amount. So as and when the principal increases, the simple interest increases. And as and when the principal decreases, the simple interest decreases. Same thing happens with simple interest and time and simple interest and rate of interest. That means simple interest is proportional to principal amount, it is proportional to time period, and is proportional to rate of interest. So when any of these three increases, the simple interest also increases proportionately. And when any of these three decreases, the simple interest again decreases proportionately. So as the principal becomes 3 times, the simple interest will also become 3 times as they are directly proportional to each other. So I can say that the simple interest SI dash for the next 5 years would be 3 times the simple interest for the first 5 years. So that is equal to 3 into 300, that is 900 rupees. So the total interest at the end of 10th year would be the interest for first 5 years plus the interest of next 5 years. So the total interest will be equal to the interest of first 5 years, that is 300 rupees, and the interest in the next 5 years, that is 900. So the total here comes out to be 1200 rupees. So this is how this question can be simply answered by taking the interest for the first 3 years 3 times. So remember that simple interest is directly proportional to principal and time and the rate of interest. So as any of these three increases or decreases, the simple interest also increases or decreases proportionately. That's all from this topic of simple interest and compound interest. As you have seen, in most of the questions from this topic, we can use the concept of percentages to get the answers in a smart way. Practice well on these questions. See you in the next session. Thank you. the simple interest on 4,000 in 3 years at X% per annum equals the simple interest on 5,000 at 12% per annum in 2 years. What is the value of X? So what do? Simple interest on 4,000 in 3 years at X% is equal to simple interest on 5,000 at 12% in 2 years. Balance and you will get the answer. He's saying SI in the first case is equal to SI in the second case. SI1 is equal to SI2. What is SI1? PTR by 100. So 4,000 into time is 3 into rate is X by 100 is equal to 5 PTR by 100, right? T2 R2 by 100. So 5,000 into time is 2 years into rate is 12 by 100. Simplify, zeros get cancelled, this thousands anyway get cancelled there. 4 into 3, 12 here gets cancelled, right? So what are we left with? 5 into 2, 10. So X is equal to 10% per annum, which is option A. SI on a certain sum is 16 by 25 of the sum. The rate percent, if the rate percent and time in years are equal. So you know that SI is equal to PTR by 100. Here the question says simple interest is 16 by 25 times of the sum. 16 by 25 times of the sum is what? 16 by 25 times of the principal. Sum is nothing but the principal amount. So the question says SI is 16 by 25 into P. So let's substitute here 16 by 25 times the sum equals to P into T into R by 100. Now we have to find out the rate percent. R should be calculated. What does the question say? The rate percent and time in years are equal. R is equal to T is what the question says. So in place of T, let us substitute R into R. Yes or no? T is equal to R. R divided by 100. Simplify, T and T gets cancelled. This goes 4 times. So we get R squared is equal to 4 into 16, 64. So what is R here? 8% per annum. The question may ask you find out what is the time, how many years? 8 years. Because R is equal to T. In that case you can say T into T. Or find out R is equal to T. So R is 8, time will also be 8. Right? Answer is option C, 8%. The time in which rupees 80,000 amounts to rupees 92,610 at 10% per annum compound interest being compounded half yearly or semi-annually. So you have to find out the time. Now you know what happens in case of half yearly compounding. See, the given principal is 80,000. The given time period or time period anyway has to be calculated. The given rate of interest is 10% per annum. Right? Now this is a general case. These are the given values. But since it is semi-annually, the values would change. What happens? Semi-annually means what? Principal remains 80,000. The principal will not get affected. Whether it is half-yearly compounding or quarterly compounding or yearly compounding, the amount that you have borrowed remains the same. It will be 80,000. Time we need to be careful. Understand, time here will be, what will be the, like generally we say time is in years. But here time will be in half years. You understand? 6 months. Each period here is 6 months. In general, what do we say? Each period is 1 year. So how many years? How many periods? When you say time period is 3 years, means 3 periods. We are considering 3 times. Here we will be saying 3 periods, where each period is 6 months. Right? Anyway, time is to be calculated, but rate should be taken as 5% per half year, per semi-year. You understand? Because 10% for the whole year. When you are going for semi-annually compounding or half-yearly compounding, you must take it as half, 5%. Right? Now you can do the calculation. The given amount is 92,610. Amount is given as 92,610. So you can calculate how much is the interest. How do you calculate that? You know the principal, you know the amount. Can you get the interest here? Yes. I can say CI is equal to 92,610 minus 80,000. That will be equal to 12,610. This is our compound interest. 12,610. Now you know the compound interest, you know the principal amount, and you know the rate of interest. Can you find out the time? Yes, you can do that calculation. You can either go for A plus B plus AB by 100% formula, or you can use the compound interest formula itself, right? T into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T to get the required answer. You will get T. See, whatever T you get there, for example, there if you let's say you get T as 3, that 3 means it is 1.5 years because 3 periods. The T that we get here, see, generally we say years because it is generally yearly compounding. When I get T equals to 3 in any case, we say it is 3 years. If T is equal to 5 implies 5 years. If T is equal to 7 means 7 years. Because there it is yearly compounding. But in half yearly compounding, T equals to 3 means 3 half years. 3 half years is 1.5 years. You understand? Let's say if you get T equals to 4. 4 periods. Each period is half year. 4 half years. 4 half years is 2 years. If you get T equals to 7, 3.5 years. You know that logic has to be clear. So that way you can solve it and get the answer. But all this is not required because you have a smart way of answering this question. You did not put pen on paper. In less than 5 seconds, you will say option A, 1.5 years is the answer. No doubt about it. Right? Now how do we do that? Don't have to put pen on paper. No paperwork is required. See, understand. 80,000, it becomes 92,610. How much interest did I get? 12,610. Like we have calculated, compound interest is 12,610. You can do this without putting pen on paper. So I know that the compound interest that we have got is 12,610. Now if you observe, my principal here is 80,000. Principal is 80,000, interest is 12,000, approximately 12,000. How much percentage is it? 15%, right? Approximately 15%, because 8,000 is 10%, 4,000 is 5%, 10% plus 5%, 15%, 8,000 plus 4,000, 12,000. 6. Anyway, you know that CI will be generally a little more, because more than compared to simple interest, right? The idea is understand approximately what percentage. We have all solved, all of us have solved SI and CI questions using the concept of percentages only, right? Through the videos we have discussed, only using percentages we solve them. So what do? Always interest, whether it is simple or compound, we calculate in terms of percentage first, and then take that percentage on principal. So here interest is given 12,610. What I need to establish is how much percentage is this? How much percentage? Approximately 15%. If it is, let's say, 16,800, 16,400, I'll say 20% approximately, right? 10% is 8,000, 20% is 16,000, 30% is 24,000, 15%, 8,000 plus 4,000, 12,000. I've got 15%. Strictly speaking, a little more than 15%, because 610 is there, right? Extra 610. Approximately, you can say 16%. Between 15 and 16%, very close to 16%. Alright. So approximately 15% we can say. See, our rate is 5%. Generally, what do? We use the effective percentage formula. What is that formula? 5 plus 5 plus 5 into 5 by 100. So this will give us 10.25. That means if it is for 2 periods, we'll get 10.25. If it is for 3 periods, what happens? We'll say 10.25 again with 5%. 5 plus 10.25 into 5 by 100. This will be 15% approximately. 15 point something, close to 16%. That's what we have got here. So can I say it is 3 periods? Because only when I take 5 3 times, I get 15 point something. A plus B plus AB by 100. That AB by 100 is negligible. A plus B is important. So it's like 5, 5, 5. 3 times has been considered. 5%, 5%, 5%. So this will give us 10.25. Then 10.25 with the third 5% will give me approximately 15. Which is what we have got here. So I can say it is like 3 periods. 3 periods means what? Each period is half year here. So 3 periods means 3 half years, which is 1.5 years. If you get, let's say, 20, you can say 2 years. 20 means 4 5s. 4 5 means 4 half years. So 4 periods. 4 periods, 4 half years, 2 years. That's the idea, right? So no need to do all that complicated calculation and make your life miserable. Keep it simple. Why? You are a smart student, right? Approximately 15%, so 1.5 years. That's your answer. A sum of money at compound interest doubles itself in 15 years. It will become 8 times itself in how many years? See, whatever you invest at a particular rate of compound interest, right? This is a compound interest case. At some rate, what happens? This amount becomes doubles. In how many years? 15 years. In how many years will it become 8 times itself is the question. See, the question here is P becomes 2P. If you have invested P, it becomes 2P. In how many years? 15 years. P becomes 2P, 15 years. In how many years will it become 8P? P becomes 8P in how many years is the question there. See, very simple. If you go by logic, within no time you know the answer is option A, 45 years. What is that logic? You have invested something, it doubles in 15 years. Whatever it has become, that again doubles in another 15 years. See, the rate at which it doubles will be constant. Yes or no? The rate at which, the time in which it doubles will be constant. If it is doubling in 15 years, every time it doubles in 15 years. Again after 15 years, whatever was the amount, it gets doubled. Again after 15 years, whatever was the amount, it gets doubled. So P becomes 2P, P to 2P in 15 years. Again this 2P becomes 4P. This doubles in how many years? 15 years. This 4P doubles, becomes 8P in how many years? 15 years. So it's like doubling, whatever is invested doubles. So P becomes 2P, 2P becomes 4P, 4P becomes 8P, 15, 15, 15, 45 years. Option A is your answer. That's it. A sum of money becomes 8 times in 3 years. Write the equation. 8 times in 3 years. So 8P equals to P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 3. So I can say 1 plus R by 100 whole cube is equal to 8. Yes or no? That's the equation. In fact, you need not write this. You will know that t gets cancelled. Just remember 1 plus r by 100 whole to the power of 3 is equal to 8. In how much time will the same amount at the same rate become 16 times? It should become 16 times. That means what? 16p equals to p into 1 plus r by 100 whole to the power of 4. See, the point here is, from this I know that 1 plus r by 100 whole cube is equal to 8. Right? Now here p gets cancelled. Sorry, t. We have no idea about the time. Right? 16 equals to p into 1 plus r by 100 whole to the power of t. T has to be calculated. In how much time will it become? 16 times. Now the question here is, in this case if you observe, 1 plus r by 100 whole to the power of t is equal to 16. Now in this case, 8 to 16, it's difficult, right? 16 can be taken as 8 into 2. So 8 can be replaced as 1 plus r by and whole cube. But again into 2 is there. So simplifying that will become a little complex. The point is, you can say 1 plus r by 100 is equal to 2. How do you say that? See, this 8 is equal to 2 cube. So this powers get cancelled. 1 plus r by 100 base, 2 is the base. So 1 plus r by 100 equals to 2. Don't try to calculate the value of r now. It's not required. Just substitute 1 plus r by 100 equals to 2 here. So what do we get? Substitute this part here. So what do we get? 2 power t is equal to 16. So what should be t? 2 power what is 16? 2 power 4 is 16. So t is equal to 4. That's it. So calculate from one, substitute in the other. That's the logic. In the previous question also we did the same thing. Here also we are going to do the same. Alright. What annual payment will discharge a debt of rupees 6,450 due in 4 years at 5% per annum simple interest? Options are 1400, 1500, 1550, 1600. Now what do you understand from the question? You have borrowed 6,450. You're not borrowed, it is like it is due in 4 years. That means you have to give 6,450 after 4 years to someone. You have taken a loan, you have to give 6,450 after 4 years. Are you able to follow? 6,450 is due in 4 years. You have to give 6,450 after 4 years. What is the prevailing rate of interest? 5% per annum. So existing rate of interest is 5% per annum. What annual payment? That means what? EMI is generally equated monthly installment, but here is equated annual installment, EAI you can say. What annual payment? So what installment will discharge a debt? This is on you, right, on your head. This debt is on your head, 6,450. So how much should you pay per year? Which is, so that 6,450 which is due in 4 years at 5% per annum is discharged. Are you able to follow? And annual payment means it has to be an equal payment, equal annual payment. So how do you solve this? Options are 1400, 1500, 1550, 1600. See, understand, how much is the time duration? 0 to 4 years. 0 years to 4 years. Are you able to follow? Now if you observe, we have to give an annual payment. So how many payments will you make? 4 payments. When will those payments happen? At the end of first year, at the end of second year, at the end of third year, at the end of fourth year. So this will be the first payment. At the end of 1 year, this is the first payment. At the end of second year, this will be the second payment. At the end of third year, this will be the third payment. And fourth year, it will be the fourth payment. You understand? You will not pay anything in the beginning of the year. Only at the end of year you will pay something. There is a shortcut formula to solve such questions. I am not giving you the shortcut formula. I am explaining you the concept using which you can answer it very, very easily. You don't have to remember that complicated shortcut formula. So just try to follow that. Explanation may take some time, but once you understand, it's very, very easy. So what happens? We have to give 4 payments. At the end of, now I have borrowed 6,450. The person says you give 6,450 after 4 years. So 4 years time I have, right? Or after 4 years I have to give 6,450. Now it starts now. At the end of 1 year. After 1 year I give first installment. Then after second year I give second installment. Then after third year, third installment. Then after fourth year, the fourth installment. Right? That's the point. So 4 installments will be given. Now understand, let us assume that the installment amount is I. What we are giving is I. So I will give I after first year, I after second year, I after third year, I after fourth year. I will give 4 I's. Not 4 I's. 4 I's, right? 4 installments. Now the rate is 5% per annum. The point to be noted here is, see, I will give this first installment after first year. Now if you observe, this first installment was paid at the end of first year. 1, 2 and 3 years. For 3 years, I should get interest at 5% per annum. See, I am actually supposed to give you 6,450 after 4 years. Try to understand this. I am supposed to give 6,450 after 4 years. But after 1 year, I am giving you some part of it. But you cannot say that it is only a part of 6,450. On that installment that I have given you after 1 year, I should actually get 5% per annum for 3 years. Because if I don't give it to you, whatever installment I am giving it to you, if I don't give it to you, if I deposit in a bank, that bank will pay me 5% per annum. For how many years? For 3 years. Because otherwise I will pay this I after 4 years. Are you able to follow? I am supposed to pay after 4 years. I am giving you something in advance. But on that advance I get interest. How much interest? 5% per annum. For how many years? For 3 years. Because after that there is 3 years time for me to pay you. So I get 5% for 3 years. So I get I'll give you I, and that I is like, it is not simply I is the installment term, right? I is the installment I give you, but you will also get, it is like this, instead of I taking that 5% for 3 years, you will get that 5% for 3 years. But why are you able to get it? Because I have paid you something. Are you able to follow? My installment is helping you get 5% for 3 years. That means you will not only get I, you will get plus 5% into 3 years. Are you able to follow? This first installment will charge. Now I will pay one more installment after second year. So I have paid you I. But on this installment also, for next 2 years, you will get 5%. If I don't give it to you, I will get it. But because I am giving you in advance, you will enjoy that benefit. What benefit? You will get 5% for 2 years. So that is also a part of my payment only. So I will say I have given you I plus 5% into 2 years. This is the installment. Likewise, third installment, I have paid you I. I will get only 5% for 1 year, which you will take on my behalf. And last installment is paid at the 4th year, at the end of 4th year, where I don't get any interest, because at end of 4th year I was supposed to pay you the total amount. So I will get one more I. This total should be equal to what? Whatever is my debt on you, 6,450. I was supposed to pay you 6,450. I paid I in the first year, but on that you also get 5% for 3 years. So that will also be a part of my payment only. Otherwise, you cannot say that bank is paying me. Bank is paying you only, but bank is paying you because I have given you that amount. That belongs to me actually, but you are taking. So that's the idea. You understand? That's the idea to solve this installment problems. That's it. Simplify this, get the value of I. Now it may look to be complicated, lengthy equation, but very simple. I plus I plus I plus I. How many installments? 4 installments. 4I plus 5 into 3, 15%, 5 into 2, 10%, 5 into 1, 5%. Here 0%. Total how much interest? 5 into 3, 15, 5 into 2, 10, 5 into 1, 5. 15 plus 10, 25, 25 plus 5, 30. 30% of what? I. 30% of the installment that I have paid you. 30% of I is equal to 6,450. Can you simplify this? Yes. See, 4 is like 400%. 4 is like 400%, 30%. Or you can say 30% of I is 0.3I. 4 plus 0.3I, 4.3I. So 4.3I is equal to 6450. I is equal to what? 6450 divided by 4.3. This you need to 1500 as answer. Simplification you need to do. Option B is the answer there. Are you able to follow? Very easy. Suppose if it is for 3 years, only for 3 years, what do you do? First installment plus next 3. If it is for 3 years, then I will get only for 2 years. I will pay at the end of first year, second year and third year I will get. So into 2. I plus 5 into 1. I plus 0. This part will not be there. So that way you have to calculate. Just simplify and you get the answer. Alright? If you want, I will give you a shortcut formula also, but in my view this is very basic. You don't have to do all this drama and analysis after this. For the first time it needs that explanation. Otherwise, just do this and get the answer. So 4 installment, and you can directly write 4 installments, 4I, 5% for 3 years, 5% for 2 years, 5% for 1 year. So 5 into 3 plus 2 plus 1. 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6. 5 into 6, 30. 4 installments plus 30% of that installment equals to total amount 6,450. Simplify and get the answer. In my view, this is very, very easy. This is the concept, and going by concept is always easy. You don't have to remember any shortcut formula or technique, right? However, the shortcut formula to get this installment is as follows. You can say I is equal to that amount, whatever amount is due, 6,450 into 100 divided by 100 into T plus RT into T minus 1 divided by 2. If you can remember the shortcut formula, do that. So amount 6,450 into 100, 100 into T, T is capital T actually, time. right? Here also capital T. Let me use RT into T minus 1 divided by 2. So T is time, how many years? 4 years. R is 5, T is 4. 4 minus 1 by 2. Just do the calculation. See, same thing you will get. 6450 into 100, 6450 into 100, 100 into 4, 400, 5 into 4, 20, 4 minus 1 by 2, 3 by 2, 20 into 3 by 2, 20 into 3, 60, 60 by 2, 30. So 400 plus 30, 430. That's what you got, right? 430. 430 divided by 100 because numerator 100 is getting cancelled. So 6450 into 100 by 430 will give you 6450 by 4.3. Remember the shortcut formula or do this calculation, whichever is your convenience. See, a man borrows 21,000 at 10% per annum compound interest. How much he has to pay equally for 2 years at the end of each year, so that he will settle his loan. Now what happens here? 21,000 loan, rate is 10% for 2 years. What happens is, it is not just 21,000 which has to be paid. In 2 years, it will also gain interest. So you will not only have to pay the principal amount, but also the interest that it is gaining. So let us first calculate the total amount that will become in 2 years. See, 21,000 formula, total amount formula. What is the amount formula? P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of T. So 21,000 into 1 plus R, 10, right? Where is that? 10% compound interest. 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power of 2. This is the total amount which he has to pay in 2 equal installments. Yes or no? 21,000 will become 21,000 into 1 plus 10 by 100 whole to the power of 2. It becomes the total amount in 2 years. This has to be paid in 2 installments. So how will you pay? See, this total should be balanced. Let us assume that installment value is I. Each installment is I. So I will pay I at the end of first year. I pay I at the end of first year. But what happens? I am paying this at the end of first year. 1 year I have not paid anything. I will pay I at the end of first year. Now this I will also earn interest at 10% for the second year. Are you able to follow? Again same thing. Timeline is 2 years. At the end of first year I have paid I. Here I don't get anything. I have paid I. But on this I, for the next 1 year, the bank will get 10%. Let's say I am paying it to bank. I have borrowed the loan from bank or whichever person. That person will get 10% on this I. So that also should come into my account because I have paid you. Are you able to follow? So I am paying I at the end of 1 year, but this I will get 10% interest. 10% of I. Then what happens? At the end of second year, I will pay another installment, which is I. Now this I will not get any interest because after 2 years I have to settle. That's it. Simplify, get the value of I. Are you able to follow? So let's do that. What happens? 21,000 into, this is like 11 by 10. And zeros get cancelled. 1 plus 1 by 10. 11 by 10. 11 by 10 whole square becomes 121 by 100 equals to I plus 10% of I. I plus I, 2I. 10% of I is 0.1I. 2I plus 0.1I, 2.1I. Are you able to follow? 1 plus 1 plus 0.1, 2.1, 2.1I. Simplify. See the zeros, these two zeros get cancelled. 2.1 goes how many times here? 100 times. Yes or no? 210 by 2.1, 100 times. 100 into 121, 12,100. So your installment value I is equal to 12,100. That's it. The only point you need to remember while solving questions on equal installments or yearly payments is that whatever you are paying at the end of first year will get interest for remaining years. Whatever you are paying for after second year will get interest for the remaining left out years, and so on till the last year. The last year installment will not get anything. So that is on one side. All this is like your payment, and this is what you need to pay. So what you need to pay? 21,000, and this 21,000 will also get interest for 2 years. So that total has to be balanced. In the previous case, 6,450 was due, so we did not take interest on that 6,450. Are you able to follow? Simply 6,450 on left hand side because it was due in 4 years. After 4 years I am supposed to pay. But here it is like 21,000 I have borrowed and interest starts calculating from day 1 onwards. So balance both the things, then we get the answer. Don't go by any formula. However, shortcut formula I have given you for the previous one. This also you can derive, like we have done in the previous case. You can derive, you can Google and find out. So do that if you wish to go by shortcut formula. Otherwise, the concept is very simple.